Hello and welcome to today's Microsoft drive-thru event. My name is Eda Gimenez and I'm with Buncee, and I'm excited to get started for today's session. And so for today, our hope is really to talk a little bit more about different ways, ideas, and strategies where you'll be able to learn strategies to be able to personalize learning for your students and make your remote learning experience or in-person teaching experience much more fun and productive while using Buncee with Microsoft Teams. And so for today's agenda, so we have the pleasure of about 2 hours for today's session. So I'm excited to be able to spend a lot of time today to actually walk you through an introduction on Buncee, how you can use it with Microsoft Teams, and we'll spend a little bit of the second half of today's session actually going into a lot more detail. You'll be able to do a little bit more of a hands-on experience and actually create your own Buncee, and at the same time see how you can actually use it step by step with Microsoft Teams. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but let me know where you're tuning in from and how you guys are doing for today. So let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get started with today's session. And so you should be able to see my screen now over here, but as an introduction about Buncee, before we really dive into how you can use it with Microsoft Teams, especially if you're new to it, Buncee is what we call a content creation tool that's really meant to be very creative by nature. It's used by students, teachers, administrators, parents, whoever would like to be creative, and they're really a platform for you to be able to leverage it in so many different ways. Whether you want to be able to use it to encourage student voice, to be able to blend your instruction, or to support your communication within your classroom, or even engage your parents. There's so many different possibilities for you to be able to apply this tool and this platform to be able to make learning much more fun and engaging for your students. And so with that, let me go ahead and get started. And so Buncee is this big platform. There's a lot of different capabilities to it, but at its heart, it's what we call a content creation tool, really with that hope and ambition for students and teachers to be able to very easily create and share visually engaging forms of content. And so as you access the tool and log right in, what you'll notice is that we give a lot of different media features that will help you to be able to create very interactive, media-rich activities, lessons, projects right within the canvas. So as you log into your account, you'll have access to a big library of thousands of different Buncee graphics. So that includes stickers, animations, you access 3D graphics as well. So all of this is right within the Buncee platform. But in addition to that, as you'll see on my screen right over here, that you also have access to images right from the web. So that includes static images that are Creative Commons licensed, such as the web images. You also have access to guaranteed safe YouTube videos that are all educationally safe for your students as well as yourselves to use as you create your content or your lessons. So that includes, videos from NASA, National Geographic. You also can source videos from Khan Academy. All of these will be powerful resources for you to be able to supplement your lessons as well as your activities. Now, in addition to that, if you're interested to also be able to add a little bit of a personalized touch into what you create on Buncee, you'll also be able to record your own video as well as your own audio. And last but not least, if you're interested to create your Buncee as an activity, of course, for your students and assess their progress, you'll also be able to use it and add free response questions as well as multiple choice questions. And so all of this being said, really our hope is that with all of the different media options that we provide to our teachers as well as students, our hope is that you'll be able to have everything that you need to be able to create and share and express your learning without really any sort of limitation. Of course, all of this goes without saying that there's so many different use cases for you to be able to use Buncee into your instruction, to be able to either create your lessons, to create your activities with your students, or even for your students to get engaged. So what you'll see on my screen right here are just different ways that folks are able to actually use Buncee in their classroom. So they're using it to create, worksheets, digital stories, as you saw, engaging presentations, of course, review cards, flashcards. You could create a book report, a book review, a timeline. Really, the possibilities for you to be able to create awesome, interactive, media-rich content are really endless. And I emphasize this because especially during remote learning or hybrid instruction, our hope nowadays is to really find opportunities to be able to create these awesome content that will actually engage our students and make sure that they, keep alive and well during these times to be able to enjoy the lesson. And so that's what Buncee is as a content creation tool. But like I said in the beginning, it's a really big platform. So we also offer a range of tools that aim to support students and help further engage them in their classwork. So I'm going to do a quick summary of what those tools are before diving right into showing you how they work. And so aside from being able to create your content as students, your students also have the ability to very easily share their work and really sort of create this authentic audience around things that they're doing in their classroom. So as they create their Buncees or their content on the Buncee platform, they'll also be able to very easily share it online. So you'll notice that you could share it to Microsoft Teams directly, Google Classroom, you could send it as an email, you can share it as onto social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. So there's a lot of different ways that your students are able to actually share what they've created, their projects, and also put it into an authentic audience for them. At the same time, they can also share their work offline for offline access. So you could publish it as both a PDF as well as an image too. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to, of course, publish the content that you create on the Buncee platform. Now, in addition to that, of course, our hope is that as your students, as well as yourselves, create your content, we also make it easy for you to be able to engage with one another and continue that discussion. So as your students create their work on Buncee, you can know that they'll also be able to leave comments on one another's work. They'll also be able to leave reactions on each other's work. So it really helps to make that sort of class environment still keep alive and make it easy for you to still get connected no matter what that distance between you and your students look like. Now, even further, of course, I say this a lot, but our hope is really to make the learning experience very fun for your students. So as your students log into Buncee, create their work on it, just know that they have a lot of different opportunities as well to be able to unlock badges and earn recognition for the work that they're doing in their classroom. And so you can earn badges for, how much or how many Buncees you create or how many Buncees that you engage in discussion with, or how many Buncees you actually submit your assignments on time or in a row. So there's a lot of different opportunities for your students to really get engaged and earn recognition for the work that they're doing in their classroom. So that being said, the last few things I just wanted to highlight, especially if you're new to Buncee, is that aside from offering a range of tools for your students to get started on a Buncee and well as get engaged, we also offer a range of different features to help support you as an educator and make it easy for you, of course, to be able to teach your students no matter what the distance is between you both. And so, of course, if you are interested to create your content from scratch, you can of course easily do so on Buncee, but at the same time, just know that you also have access to thousands of different classroom-ready, teacher-tested templates right within the Buncee platform. And these range across different subject areas as well as grade levels. And so you'll notice that when you log into the tool itself. And to supplement that, you also as an educator have access to what we call Ideas Lab. Now, Ideas Lab is a very, very powerful platform where you're able to see different ideas, activities, classroom-ready templates that are actually shared by different educators in the community, from different countries across different grade levels as well as subject areas. Now, our community is sharing their different activities and ways that they've implemented Buncee into their classroom instruction. And so you'll be able to access all of this in one library, which is Ideas Lab, and be able to actually leverage these activities in your classroom. And I'll walk you through how that works as well. Other things, of course, is that if you're new to Buncee, you can also use it to be able to create your assignments with your students and manage your own virtual dashboard. So you'll be able to create your Buncees as assignments, send it to your students, and be able to monitor their progress. You could, see their grades, monitor, give them feedback on their work. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to be able to just assess your students as well. That being said, that sort of brings us to a quick summary of all of the different features that are available in Buncee, but at the same time, just know that if you're either using Google or Microsoft especially, we are fully integrated in so many different ways, as you can see here. So you can actually use Buncee with Microsoft Teams, which we're going to dive in a lot more detail later in this session. But you can also use it with Immersive Reader, OneNote. If you are using a Windows device, you can also access our app for it. And there's a lot of different ways that you can actually integrate Buncee into your classroom instruction and make it a lot more of a seamless process for your students. That being said, so I want to highlight a few different examples of how you can actually use Buncee in your classroom, whether you're a teacher or you're a student. And after I show these examples, what I'll do is I'm going to do a quick overview of the Buncee platform itself. We'll log in, show you all of the different features that we just quickly highlighted, and then we'll take a 10-minute break. And after that 10-minute break, we'll actually go do a lot more of a hands-on training where you'll be able to see how to create your Buncee, share it with your students, and more specifically, actually go into Microsoft Teams and be able to take your instruction there. And so with that, let me go ahead and start sharing these different examples. And just know that at the end of the session, I'll be also going through the different questions that you're sharing. So if you have any questions as we go through this session, at the end, we'll also be able to cover a little bit of a Q&A as well. And so first example that I have over here is just a few examples of how teachers are using Buncee to be able to share their lessons or their projects with their students. And so what you'll see on my screen is that this is, of course, an example of a Buncee. And the idea, like I mentioned in the beginning, is that Buncees are meant to be fun, it's engaging, and it's really enticing for your kids. And so what you'll notice here is that it's very interactive. So this is a lesson that an educator actually had made on Buncee to teach Chinese to his students. And so what you'll notice here is, of course, that you'll be able to record your own videos on Buncee. So he recorded his own video to teach his lesson to his students. So it's very interactive. So you'll be able to play the video right on Buncee. So you'll be able to play your video. So what's great about this is that, especially if you're teaching a language and you don't have this opportunity to see your students, face to face as much anymore, your students have the ability to take this lesson that you share with them and do it in a more self-paced manner where they'll be able to replay these videos that you record of yourself teaching them. They'll be able to interact with it at their own time and pace. So you'll be able to play videos, as you'll notice over here, that you can, of course, type in the language that you choose of your keyboard. You can also record your own audio. So what you'll notice here is that he's teaching his students how to, make bamboo. So he actually records the recipe in both English as well as in Chinese. So I'll play it right quickly here. So he's able to record his own audio into the Buncee. At the same time, he's pulling different graphics that are all sourced within the Buncee platform too. So this image, for example, is a Creative Commons licensed image for that he's added to supplement his lesson. Just know that any web image that you actually search on Buncee is Creative Commons licensed, meaning that it is safe for you as well as your students to use. There's no copyright issue that you have to be concerned with. And so this is just a quick lesson that a teacher had made to share with his students. And like I mentioned, that this is great because especially when you're teaching language learning, not only is this very media rich and visually engaging for your students, but it's very supportive in the ways that it helps your students to be able to build this one-to-one word association for, the different vocabularies that they're learning. So of course, the teacher can actually record his own audio so that the student is able to listen back and play it at their own pace. They'll also be able to read that audio. And at the same time, you are able to also record your own video. So very simple, easy to create this sort of lesson on Buncee. Now, other examples. So if you are, let's say teaching, a STEM lesson, this is just another great way for you to be able to create, something that's very visually engaging for your students, especially when they're learning remotely, where it's very difficult for them to get enticed by the activities, especially when they're learning by themselves. So it's very important to create more engaging content. That being said, so this is an activity where it's a lesson, a science lesson that's shared with the students. So what you'll notice here is that all of these different graphics actually are sourced from Buncee. So the teacher is piecing out all of these media together. You'll notice too that you can actually add a free response question right over here. So if you are sharing this lesson to your students can actually fill this in. So they can type their own responses right into it. And send this back to you as part of their assignment, and you'll be able to review all of their submission responses and then give them a grade, of course. But as you go through, you'll notice in the lesson, of course, again, that as it loads, you're also able to embed your own video on it. So again, very interactive. This video is embedded right from YouTube. It's a safe video for your students to view. So this teacher is actually walking through, or the scientist rather, is walking through the experiment that they're talking about in this lesson. And then again, you'll see another free response question, so your students can actually respond to these instructional videos that you've added to your activity. So what's great is that, as you see, you can actually add all of the different resources that you want your students to be able to engage with, especially if they're doing it in a self-paced manner, and have the ability to also submit what they're learning to you very easily. So going right through again, you'll notice that the teacher goes as far, since this is an experiment, to actually visualize some of the different experiment resources that they need to be able to do this lab activity. So the teacher actually, instead of giving them like a handout to, of course, do the experiment, actually visualizes all the different resources that they need and materials that they need to do this experiment. And all of these different graphics are from Buncee, so it makes it a lot more eye-popping for your kids to be able to do the project. And then going forward, this is just the instructions of what the students need to do. So the teacher is able to actually visualize that science process for their kids. And all of the different graphics, again, are pulled from Buncee, so the teacher was able to do that very easily. And then just going through again, more of the different graphics that you'll notice. So all of these different images are pulled from Buncee, and you as a teacher have this sort of visual and creative ability to be able to put these together. So this is just another quick example of another Buncee activity, and I'll just go through a few more examples right over here. So this is an example from another educator just to create a language board for his students. These are more graphics pulled from Buncee, as you'll notice, but as you go through, more directions. So it's pretty standard in the way that you're able to create your activities. But as you see on this example right over here, that especially for language learning, Buncee is a really powerful support because it has a lot of visuals. It has a lot of supporting text that you can associate with these visuals. And this educator right over here is actually helping the student, put these different word structures together, sentence structures together. So she's able to visualize, the different vocabulary terms and help the student actually piece it together for this, for the lesson. And so this is another just great example that I thought I'd share here today. But let's talk a little bit more about what students are actually creating on Buncee. So we just covered a lot of the different educator examples, which are creating those awesome activities. But what's great about Buncee is that it's really a student chosen tool. Whether you're a kindergartner student or even a high school level student, our users are spanning across the spectrum here. So just as a first activity, we recently had partnered with a number of different groups, especially Inspire Malaysia, with one of our ambassadors, Buncee ambassadors, Ruben, for the World Space Month program. And so as part of this program, a lot of students across Malaysia were actually able to participate and share, sort of their research on space on a Buncee. So that's what I'm going to show right over here. So this happens to be the site for this program itself. And one of their tasks was to, of course, create that Buncee. So when we pull up this example, what you'll notice is that if you scroll below, this was the tutorial that they had, but as the page loads a bit, we'll actually be pulling up the different examples that they had as student submissions for this challenge. And it was really great. So you'll notice that this is a board filled with different examples made by different students in Malaysia. They have about 166 views, which is pretty awesome, and a lot of different reactions on each. So as we scroll right through, you'll notice that there's a lot of different submissions and thumbnails for them. And let me just open one, for example, here. So this is an example of a project that was actually created by a group of students, of course. They put this together themselves, but you'll notice that it's a lot more fun for them to be able to create this project. So I'm just going to make this one open. So this is just a preview. So I'm just going to pull it up here. But what was great about this is that as I flip through the different pages, you'll know it's a lot more interactive for the students to be able to represent their understanding, their knowledge, and show that to you as their educator, and make it a lot more meaningful and authentic to them as, a creative process. And so this is the example the students had put together, which is they're obviously researching the Black Star. So all of these different visuals, these students actually pulled from Buncee to represent it. But as you go through the activity, you'll notice that they're sharing some of their other research work, the responses to the prompts that they had, but it's a lot more attractive, a lot more visually empowering for them. And you'll be able to see sort of that authentic work that your kids are doing. And rather than, having them, let's say, respond to a traditional worksheet, what's great about this is that as the student projects get a lot more creative, you'll know that the work is authentic to them and that it's really created by them, of course, to be able to submit to you, so you know it's made by them. So that was just a few examples that were created by different students in Malaysia. And so I'm just going to highlight a few other projects that have been done by students as well. So this happens to be an example of a book review created by a 4th grade student. So in a traditional book review, what you notice is that you have your students reading a chapter of a book, or let's say a passage. And what you normally do is ask them to, think about the different characters or think about the significance of the passages that they're reading. And so what this student did was, instead of writing an essay, actually created a Buncee about it. So this is the first page of the Buncee, just adds like the image of the book itself. And as you go through the book, what you'll notice is that on this Buncee, the student actually shows a little bit more personality, as they're creating their work. So rather than writing about the different characters that she came across in the book, what she did was actually create an entire scene about, the different characters. So she pulled these different images right from Buncee. She pulled a graphic to sort of represent, the scene that they had. But as you play over the image itself, she actually records her own audio to talk a little bit more about, what she learned about these characters, which is a really powerful feature, right? Because if the student's able to record their own audio, they don't have to feel this pressure to always feel that they need to write. And so it gives them a lot more creative flexibility to be able to engage. So we'll play the audio very quickly here. And so this is great because, like I said, it gives the student this personality that she's able to share with her teacher to show what she's learned about her lesson. So moving forward over here, what you'll notice is that rather than also writing about the significance of different chapters in the book and writing another essay about it, this is an example where the student actually recreated an entire scene of the book and actually talked a little bit more about the significance. So what you see over here is that rather than writing, again, this essay in a traditional format, the student actually created the scene, pulled the different, sky, the graphics, all of this is pulled from Buncee. And what the student does is supplement this visual to highlight, what she learned about this passage using the audio feature. So this is great. Like I said, part of the challenge with remote learning is that, are you able to ensure that the work that your students are submitting is, personal to them and at the same time authentic? And this is just another great example of being able to have your students really represent their learning in a powerful and meaningful way for them. And so, of course, you'll see here that the student is also able to record their own video right within Buncee. So you could play that here. And again, that gives them that student voice and choice for them to be able to represent their learning. And then just going through, of course, pretty standard at this point, but you'll also, of course, be able to upload your own images right in Buncee. So it's very simple in that way. And just a few last examples before we actually log into the Buncee platform here is that this is another example where a student actually uses Buncee for, a social and emotional learning activity implemented by the teacher. And so part of the challenge, of course, with remote learning for our students has been sort of understanding where our students are mentally at or gauging their understanding or situation, especially since they've been, sort of isolated in some capacities. And so one of our teachers in our community actually uses Buncee to have her students use it to create a comic strip about their day. And so what you'll notice here is that this student actually visualizes her day for the teacher so that she will be able to read this comic strip and sort of understand, okay, this is the story of my student, and this is partially maybe where she's seeing these different challenges, and maybe it's a trigger for her to be able to intervene with her kids. So as her students, create the story about their day, our teachers are able to actually understand, what the situation is for their students and gauge their sort of mental capacity at this point. And so I thought this was just another great example of how you can actually use that as an indirect way to support your social and emotional learning with your kids. And then last one that I just want to quickly highlight is actually one of my favorite projects that was created. So this is a project about, of course, the Philippines. It's a little bit of a book report, but as you go through, again, all of these graphics pulled from Buncee. But when you look at it, imagine you are creating, like, let's say, an ebook for your kids using Buncee. What you'll notice over here is that there's a lot of different text for your kids to be able to filter through on. And so with a lot of different text, not every student has the same learning capabilities or reading capabilities, right? And so what we've done is partnered with actually Microsoft to bring Immersive Reader into Buncee. And even though this is maybe a popular feature, I like to emphasize this because it's really a powerful feature that will support any sort of language-based learner, whether it's a student that has special needs challenges, or even as a student with language learning differences. This feature is really proven to be able to improve reading comprehension, and in some instances, I was able to chat with some of the researchers at Microsoft or the engineers, and they've been able to do research where they've seen it improve by 10%. So it's a really powerful feature that I really like to emphasize. And so as you look at this body of text, right, not every student will be able to understand it as well as maybe another student in their class. And so what you'll notice is that as you create your text on Buncee, there's this little bit of a book icon that you can notice right over here or on the top. And when you click on this, what will happen is that your students are able to open all of this text into Immersive Reader. And so as you click on this book icon, it'll open up this Immersive Reader experience where the students will now be able to personalize this text on Buncee to their learning styles and their preferences. So let me show you how this works. And so we just opened up Immersive Reader, and this is one of the bodies of text that was actually in the Buncee, right? So first of all, your students are able to actually play back the audio, so having it read aloud to them. And what's really great about it is that aside from being able to be read aloud to your students, if you have not used this feature yet, what you'll also notice is that as the text got read aloud one by one, if your students, let's say, are learning a new language or has reading challenges, what you would have noticed is that each text actually gets highlighted as it's read aloud. So this is really powerful for your students that are learning these vocabulary words, because this will help them to build that one-to-one word association with the text that they're reading. So not only is the text read to them, but it actually allows them to zone in on what those words are. So I'll show you again that how each of the words get highlighted. So that's a really great feature that I really like to emphasize. But at the same time, let's say that your students have, audio challenges or visual impairments. You can actually change the speed of the voice. So I clicked this icon right over here. But let's say that if they have visual impairments, they can actually have the text read very, very fast, which is because, they're a lot more sensitive to the text. So they can make it a lot faster. They could reduce the speed of it. So they have a lot of ability to be able to personalize that. In addition, of course, if they have preferences of whether they want a male or a female to read the text to them, they can also change that. So that's one simple feature that I wanted to highlight on the bottom. But Immersive Reader is so powerful and so simple at the same time that there's a lot of different features on the top right that you can also navigate through. So the first one, of course, is the text preferences. So if you click on this letter A icon right over here, you'll notice that your students are able to actually change the text size of what they're reading. So they can make it bigger, they can make it smaller. So again, depending on their needs, let's say they need bigger fonts, they'll be able to personalize that. They can also change the spacing for the text. Of course, if they want more space because it's easier to digest, they can also change that. They can also change the font. So they'll be able to change it to their preferences. Of course, also if they have preferences on themes, a lot of my friends actually like the dark theme. So they'll be able to also personalize this to their preference too. Now moving forward, so the second option is the grammar option. So again, over here, what you'll also be able to see is that as your students are learning to, let's say, read, another language, you'll also be able to add syllabification. So if you toggle the syllables on, this will help you to actually break down the different words. So what you'll notice right over here is that for the words that have different syllables, they'll actually have the breakdown dot that will help them understand how to better read each of the bodies of text for it. So directly, threatens, so they'll be able to understand how to actually read that. In addition to that, they'll also be able to identify parts of speech. So they'll be able to identify, color code the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, or even the adverbs that are part of the sentence. So this is a really great feature because especially as a student that's learning another language, and let's say it's English, which happens to be really difficult to learn, this will help them better understand what is a noun, what is a verb, and also be able to identify that structure in the sentence. So this is another supporting feature. Other features that I want to highlight here is the ability to change the line focus. Now, especially if you have students that are, challenged with things like dyslexia, this is a great way for them to be able to zone in on different bodies of text. Now, students, let's say, that have dyslexia get very overwhelmed with a lot of different text. So this will allow them to focus in on specific lines of text and at the same time have those lines, be specifically read out to them. So what you'll notice here is that this was able to focus in on one line. You could change it to 3 lines if you'd like or so. At the same time, you can also turn on the picture dictionary. So if your students are reading a word, they could click on an image or click on a word and also be able to see the corresponding image for it. And then last but not least, you can of course translate your text as well. So you'll be able to click on translate, and this will pull up all of the different texts that you could translate. So at this point, I believe there's over 60 different languages that you could translate your Buncee text, your text into. So you'll be able to see there's even Malay, there's Filipino, which is the language that I speak. There's Russian, there's Spanish, etc. So you'll be able to change it to another language. So you'll be able to select one and change the entire document. So again, this is such a powerful resource for you to be able to take advantage with your students. I emphasize it a lot because it really can improve, access to your kids and personalize that learning experience for them. And so those were a lot of different examples that we just covered, whether it's teacher or students, of what people are creating on Buncee. And so with that, before we go ahead and take our break, I just want to actually show you a little bit more about the Buncee account and just walk you through how to navigate it. And then again, like I said, in the second session of this training, we'll actually go through and create a Buncee ourselves and share it into Microsoft Teams. And so before anything, what you'll notice is that I'm logged into a teacher's account. And so there's 3 different tabs that you can actually focus in on. One is the classes tab. So the classes tab is where you'll be able to create as a teacher all of your different student accounts. Now, if you are using Buncee with a Microsoft School and you have a Microsoft Azure Active Directory or use Microsoft Teams in particular, you'll actually be able to synchronize your rosters into Buncee so that you don't have to actually create each of your student accounts one by one. They'll all be ported in from Microsoft Teams into your classes tab. That being said, so the classes tab, like I mentioned in the beginning of the session, this is where you'll be able to create all of your classes, create your student accounts, as well as create all of your assignments and share it with your kids and be able to grade their progress, see what they're doing and what they're, if they're creating any Buncees at all or engaging on the projects that you have sent to them. So that all happens in your classes tab. Now the Buncees tab, of course, this is where you create that Buncee magic. So you'll be able to create your Buncees right over here. The boards tab, this is actually another powerful feature that I didn't highlight yet in more detail, but this is a powerful feature for you to be able to create a community within your class or beyond. So you'll be able to share your Buncees as collections right over here. and at the same time be able to engage in discussion there. So you could create collections of Buncees and have your students, comment on each other's work. You could comment on your students' work, etc. So these are the 3 key tabs that you would focus in on when you get started on Buncee. But other things is that, as you'll notice right over here immediately, we actually integrate with Microsoft Teams. So you'll also be able to actually create a Teams meeting right within Buncee and share it with your students to be able to create your class. So if you click on the icon right over here, what you'll be able to do is, let's say that you've created your project on Buncee, and now what your hope is to be able to actually create a class or a live lesson where you'll be able to, demonstrate this Buncee to them. You'll be able to click this icon, generate a meeting, and then it'll sign me in right here. So once I sign in, it'll actually allow me to create a meeting link, and then you could share it with your students. So immediately you can actually launch your live lessons with your students directly within the Buncee platform. So we'll go into a little more detail on that later. But other things that you'll keep in mind is that over here on the top right-hand side of your screen, this is where you'll also be able to see other ways to navigate your Buncee account. So over here, you'll be able to see help articles, but Ideas Lab here is what that feature that we spoke about earlier is. So I'm going to click onto that. And so Ideas Lab is that powerful resource that I had mentioned that you have access to as a teacher to be able to view classroom-ready ideas, activities, and just overall activities that have been shared by our community of educators around the world. So what you'll notice is that as you open Ideas Lab, that there's a lot of different ways that our teachers are using Buncee to innovate their classroom instruction. So you'll be able to scroll right through. You'll be able to view different ideas. So you'll notice right over here that these are from different educators in the community. And you could click on an idea that's been shared by these educators. You could preview it, and you could, sort of learn a little bit more about this activity. You could decide after reading a little bit more about this idea and this concept for this lesson, you can actually see this button that says create this, and it'll actually bring that template for this lesson right into your classroom. So just know that this is a powerful resource where you'll be able to see different ideas and creative activities that you can actually use with your students, and some of these are already contributed by other educators that have actually implemented these in their classroom too. So I'm just going to close this right over here. So as you scroll through here, you'll be able to see again so many different activities that you'll be able to implement Buncee for. And on the top left side here, you'll be able to see you can change and search for different activities. So on the top here, you can search, let's say, social and emotional learning, SEL. So you'll be able to see different ideas for that. Scroll right through, view that. But at the same time, you'll also be able to filter for different topic areas as well. So you'll be able to filter different topics to see what subject areas. So you can use Buncee, of course, for in the classroom subjects, let's say like math, music. You can use it for science, of course, right? But at the same time, what's great about using Buncee is that it's also a sort of beyond the classroom tool as well. So a lot of our students are able to use it even on the weekends for, personal activities too. So it's a very engaging tool. So you'll be able to see just a lot of different ideas to be able to filter through for. And then at the same time, you can also filter by different subject grade levels as well. So aside from picking the subject areas that you want to zone in on, you can also see an activity that matches up to, let's say, the high school level, or even for beyond the classroom use cases, and you'll be able to filter through that. So that's how you could quickly navigate the Buncee dashboard. So I'm going to head back into the dashboard itself and highlight just some of the last features before we actually open up the Buncee account. So on the top of your screen too, you'll also be able to see gamification. So you'll see this yellow ribbon. Like I mentioned in the presentation earlier, that when you open up the gamification, you'll actually be able to see all of the different sort of animations and rewards that your students, as well as yourselves as teachers, can unlock on Buncee. And so what you'll notice right over here is that you can actually maintain a daily streak or a weekly streak. So depending on how often that you create your Buncee activities, you'll be able to unlock mystery rewards as well as badges to be able to download, share, or use in a Buncee creation. So if you decide to maintain a streak on Buncee, you'll be able to unlock different animations or rewards, and then you'll see how many rewards you can unlock. At the same time, your students can then see how many Buncees they've created. Of course, I've created a lot of Buncees. I have 2,000 plus. You could see how many boards were created, how many times you've logged in, as well as how many times your students have engaged in discussion, left comments, reactions. So it's a great way for you to be able to understand what your students' progress is. And then, of course, all of the different badges that we've unlocked as well. And so this is the gamification feature. This is available for both students as well as teachers. So there's a lot of ways for you to be able to just make learning a lot more fun. And then the last feature I want to highlight, just as we learn how to navigate the Buncee account, is the help resources on the bottom side. So as we get started with Buncee, you'll actually be able to access this little icon on the bottom, the B, and you'll be able to see all of the different help resources and step-by-step tutorials for you to be able to understand how to get started with your account. So that being said, this is how you actually navigate your account, as well as, we just covered a lot of the different ways that people are using Buncee. So before we take a break, I want to talk a little bit more now about how you can actually use Buncee with Microsoft Teams. And then in the second half of this session, we'll actually go into a lot more detail, create our Buncee, show you different specific use case for it, and at the same time, share it into Microsoft Teams so that you can make it a seamless experience for your students as you get started throughout the school year with Buncee and Microsoft Teams. And so just going back to our presentation right over here, what you'll notice is that we've partnered with Microsoft in so many different ways, and really with that ambition to be able to support you as an educator to make learning much more fun, of course, but at the same time, of course, even more productive. And so we integrate with Microsoft Teams in so many different capacities. I can't emphasize that enough, but at the same time, OneNote and Immersive Reader. And so this has really been a vision for us to be able to make it easy for you as a classroom to be able to engage in discussion, make it easy for you to be able to create your resources on Buncee and share it easily as assignments to your students. And at the same time, make it easy for you to be able to keep that conversation alive and set up meetings together very easily. And so that's part of our vision with our work with Microsoft Teams. And so that's what you'll notice with the ways that our educators are actually leveraging the tools together. And so what you'll see is that our educators are really seeing a lot of transformation by using Buncee with Microsoft Teams in their instruction. And so what you'll see over here is that one of the features that you can notice when you use Microsoft Teams is that you have access to fun Buncee messages right within the Teams platform. So our hope is really to make, a very safe space for your students to really engage in discussion. And so on this image right over here, what you'll notice is that you can actually access a lot of different fun, quirky messages that are made on Buncee that you could share out to your students to really just, keep the conversation fun and engaging for them. In addition to that, with our integration with Teams, you'll also be very easily able to share your lessons to Microsoft Teams classes as assignments or as just resources to share with your community. So right within the Buncee platform, as you create your Buncee, and I'll show this in our demo section, but as you create your Buncee, you'll be able to share it to Microsoft Teams directly so that whether you're sharing it with your students, they'll be able to access it in a channel. And at the same time, for your teachers, you can make it easy for them to be able to access like these different template resources that you're sharing with them. In addition to that, you'll also be able to add Buncees as tabs in Microsoft Teams. So for those of you that are familiar with Microsoft Teams or not familiar, you can actually add a tab into a channel, and that's depicted right over here in this image. So you'll be able to see that you can add tabs as resources, Buncees as tabs as resources in a channel. And this is great because, especially as we've been connecting remotely with our students, it's been very overwhelming to have so many different conversations happening, right? And so sometimes we want to be able to just pinpoint key resources that we want to be able to share with our learners. And so what you'll be able to do is as you create, let's say, your announcement or your welcome message to your student or even your lesson, You'll be able to pin it as a tab so that it's, kept in one place for your kids, and it makes it easy for them to re-access this key resource rather than it getting lost in a big channel on Microsoft Teams chat. So that's another feature that you'll be able to take advantage of. And again, we'll walk through this in the second half of the session. Other things is that with our integration with Microsoft Teams, it's really been amazing for me to be able to see that it makes it easy for you as an educator to be able to keep connected with a global community right in a safe place. And so a lot of our educators have been using Buncee to not only create their resources, of course, on Buncee, but at the same time, share it as resources to their colleagues that maybe are teaching in other school systems. And so a lot of our teachers are actually creating different teams that include other educators in different schools, let's say different schools that would like to connect across Malaysia, and then sharing their Buncee resources with one another so that they're able to actually, learn and grow together. So that's some of the favorite features that I have with Buncee with Microsoft Teams. Now, of course, I shared just earlier when we were navigating the Buncee account that you can also launch Microsoft Teams meetings right within Buncee. So let's say that you create those lessons, these activities right on Buncee. You can actually launch these Teams meetings right within the Buncee account and share that with your students. So now when you're ready to, do your class discussion, you can just launch your call right within the Buncee account as well. And then some of our recent integrations make it easy for you to also keep the conversation going with your kids. And so one of the other key features I want to highlight that we recently did with Microsoft Teams is that as you create your lessons on Buncee, you have your conversations happening in Teams, but what we have now done is make it easy for you to actually keep track of all of the live discussions that you're having in a classroom meeting and save that discussion into your Buncee. So let me show you what this means for your kids. So if you are, let's say, having your Microsoft Teams call and you're connecting with your students, of course, you would be able to share your lesson as you see on this screen right over here. So as you screen share with your kids, what you'll notice is that you'll actually be able to push questions to your kids. So you'll be able to type different questions and prompts that you'd like to pose as part of your lesson, your Buncee lesson to your students. And then you'll be able to press post. And as you post these questions to your kids, your students are able to respond to these questions. They'll be able to type their replies right over here. And at the end of your class lesson, when all of your students have responded to all of these different, prompts and questions that you've posed, all of this will be documented, of course. So all of the students' responses to the questions are kept together. But what's awesome is that now when the Teams meeting ends, aside from it being documented here for you to be able to analyze, what's amazing is that as the lesson gets made, all of the entire conversation for that same lesson that you were hosting in your class, that entire conversation now gets saved into your Buncee. So gone are the days where, you've had your lessons with your kids, they weren't able to, they were able to share their thoughts, their ideas during the activity. Now all of this does get documented for that same lesson into your Buncee. So I thought this is a really great feature for you to be able to take advantage of, especially when you're teaching remotely and you want to make sure that your students are actually able to engage and have a documentation of that. And so last few things is that, Mother's Day is coming up in another month or two, but effectively you can also use Buncee to create your backgrounds on Microsoft Teams. So a lot of our kids are actually doing this for a variety of different reasons, just to be able to make it a lot more fun for their class meetings. And so now that we've covered all of the different ways that you could use Buncee with Microsoft Teams, of course, that beckons the question that how do you actually get started with using Buncee with Microsoft Teams? So I just want to highlight some of the resources that you do have available to you as well. And so the key resource for you to be able to tune into is our Buncee blog. And so what you'll see over here are all of the different ways and instructions for using Buncee with Microsoft Teams. So if you head to blog.buncee.com, you'll be able to access this blog, which will actually outline all of the things that we just covered in this presentation, along with step-by-step tutorials for you to be able to integrate it into your classroom instruction. And so these are some of the resources that you'll be able to find in our blog, of course. And so now going through over here, Last things that I just also want to highlight is that the Microsoft courses. So aside from being able to visit our blog, if you're also interested to understand how to leverage Buncee with Microsoft Teams, and in particular, if you're interested to apply as an MIE expert in Malaysia for this upcoming school term, I encourage you to actually take, the Buncee Microsoft courses. Of course, these are all free and you'll find them in the Microsoft Education Center, but we have a range of different courses to support, social and emotional learning, to learn how to innovate your library instruction, or even how to personalize your learning with Buncee and Microsoft, and also to learn how to inspire a love for writing using Buncee. So all of these free courses are available in the Microsoft Education Center, so you have access to these. And it's one of the requirements to be an MIE expert, so I emphasize it a lot for you to be able to take advantage of this. And so that being said, this is my contact information if you have any questions. And so we're going to take a moment to do a little bit of a break here. So before, we'll take a 10-minute break, but as we get back from this 10-minute break, we'll actually go and finally dive into creating our own Buncee. We'll do it step by step, show you how to actually set up your account as well with your students. And then after we create these Buncees, we'll walk through how to actually share these Buncees with your kids, and then also do it in Microsoft Teams, so that we'll be able to, get ready to really bring this fun and creative experience into your classroom. And so with that, I'm going to take a moment to pause my screen share, and I'll see you all in 10 minutes for a 10-minute break. All right, and welcome back to part 2 of our Microsoft drive-through session on Buncee and using Microsoft Teams. And so I'm excited for this part of the session because now we'll finally, after that big overview that we did in the first half of the session, now we'll finally actually dive into creating our own Buncee and how to actually use that with Microsoft Teams. And so for today's half of the session, what I really wanted to do was talk a little bit more about an idea that you can actually implement in your class today, which is really how to build a relationship with your students using Buncee, really to nurture that connectedness with them. And so let me go ahead and share my screen. And so if you have any questions for this session, feel free to drop it in the chat. Let me go ahead and just do that. So give me 1 second here. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. So what you should see is, before we actually dive right in, what I wanted to highlight is that Buncee has been really used as a platform, aside from being able to implement, different creative lessons, activities, and have your students actually create different projects, but it's really been used by our teachers throughout the entire remote learning situation to actually build a relationship with their kids. And this has been, of course, a challenge for all of us, right? Because all of us are actually speaking to each other in most instances, really using a device. So being able to feel, together has been a challenge. And so I wanted to highlight just like different ideas that you can actually implement in your classroom to really start to build a relationship and use Buncee to facilitate that. And so that being said, I wanted to show a few quick examples again, and then we'll actually create our own activity for this. But as you see on my screen, this is just an example of how one of our educators, Chang, who's a Buncee ambassador here out in Malaysia in Sarawak, but he's been using Buncee really also to create like an introduction about himself for his students so that they also get to learn a little bit more about him. So what you'll notice again, of course, on this Buncee is that he actually does a really fun and creative twist on it. So you'll be able to see he talks a little bit more about some personal information, like what's his favorite subject, what his favorite food is, and all of these different graphics, of course, goes without saying, are found on Buncee. But this is a really great activity because it's a way for you to add this sort of fun, personal touch to the ways that you introduce yourself to your kids. And at the same time, you can use it as an opportunity to have your kids also create their own respective About Me Buncees so that they can also share it out with, the other peers in their classroom so that you all get to know one another even better. So this is just an example that I wanted to highlight of some of the ways that educators are doing it, but you'll notice right over here that you can actually see he recorded his own audio. To add that little bit of a personalized touch again. And so other examples here is that some of the ways that we try to foster this sense of relationship with our community using Buncee is even going as far as even creating birthday cards with our kids. So a lot of our teachers, and this happens to be from the Buncee team ourselves, but a lot of teachers actually use Buncee to get their students to even greet their kids so that they feel like loved and part of the classroom and that people are, of course, acknowledging them. So you'll notice that in some of these different examples that you can actually use Buncee to even create that personal greeting card to connect with your kids. So these are just different, of course, Buncees, like different graphics that you pull from the tool. So this is just another idea that you can take away from. Other examples that we've done together is that even in the Buncee team itself, we've actually used the platform to also keep connected with one another since we don't get to always build that relationship since we don't have the ability to see each other in person a lot. So what we've actually done is we do weekly get-togethers with the team where we actually share, different information about ourselves on a Buncee. So what you'll notice over here is that each of these are just different examples of where part of our teammates are actually sharing things that are true about them as well as a lie. And what we do is we get on a Microsoft Teams call, we share these on a screen share, these Buncees that we've created, and we have our team members actually guess what is true about this person and what is a lie. And it's a really fun activity where you're able to actually build this relationship with your kids and at the same time get your students to also, get to know one another too, where it doesn't feel like you're always having to do an assignment with each other. So this is just an example. I'm going to click through on it, but this, of course, all the different graphics made on Buncee. What you'll notice here is that our Claire here, actually, I'm going to zoom in, created this Buncee and shared things that she thought was true, that she thinks is true about herself, as well as a lie. And again, like I said earlier, then the team starts to guess, what is true about this person and what is a lie based on what they know. So I think this is just another fun idea that you can actually implement with your classroom so that your kids can get to know each other, especially when you're, hopping on a Microsoft Teams call to really get connected with each other. So here are just some different facts, the ways that other people on our team have been doing it. So this is another Buncee that was created. Here's a truth, here's a truth, here's a truth, and your students, again, just have to guess what that lie is about the person. So it's a really fun activity. You can get your students to create their own About Me Buncees that tell their own truths and their own lie, and then have your other students in the class actually guess, what is accurate about that person and what is not. So this is another idea that you can implement in your classroom. But other fun activities that you can do with your students, just as you get started with Buncee and using Microsoft Teams to connect with them, is we also have ideas where we actually create Buncees about different movies. And when we hop on a Teams call, what you'll notice here is that our team actually created different Buncees about a movie, and we share about these Buncees on our Teams call, and then have everyone else on the team guess what movie we were trying to visualize on a Buncee. So I'll click some open right over here. So you'll see that we're trying to guess each other's movie that we visualized on a Buncee. So this goes without saying that we're probably guessing about The Lion King if you didn't know about it, but it's another fun activity that is very simple that you can actually implement with your kids, especially when you just want to have like a fun gathering on a Teams call rather than having them feel like it's always about an assignment. So it's a great way to build a relationship, build a rapport with your kids, and also get them engaged. So I'll click through a few different ones. Like I said, all of these are different movies that each of us on the team actually visualized, and then the other team members just have to guess what movie this is about. So it's a really fun activity that you can do with your students too. Other few examples of this concept of getting to know one another that you can bring and build a relationship with your kids is creating a bucket list. So another idea that we've also done here is actually have everyone in a class create a bucket list, visualize that on a Buncee, and share it with, everyone in the class on a screen share, and have everyone guess what's on people's bucket list. So I'm going to open one right over here. So if you weren't aware what a bucket list is a list of different activities that you want to be able to do yourself, maybe in the short term or in the future, but be able to do. So these are just different ideas that this person had shared on our team, Claire, of things that she wants to accomplish one day, hopefully, as part of her bucket list. So you'll notice all of these different graphics pulled from Buncee, but she chose 6 different things that she wants to be able to do. And on our screen share using Microsoft, we actually go ahead as a team guess, what each of these on her bucket list is. So here's one where she's hoping to, go to Scotland, or here's one where she wants to go to Alaska or visit a safari or go across the US in a trailer. So it's a really fun activity. And like I said, I love seeing how other people are using the tool to really just build a relationship with their kids and really have them have this opportunity to express themselves in a fun and creative way so that they don't always have to feel like every class is about an assignment instead. So these are just a few different examples, and we'll go ahead and finally start creating our own Buncee. But here's the last one where you can also use it to, let's say, create a visual about some of your travels, or maybe about your own scrapbook or photo book, and also share it with the team. So this happens to be mine when it loads, but This is a little bit more about when I would travel into Asia and such, but it's a really fun project where you're able to have your kids really just put together these fun activities and share it with their classrooms. And so that being said, let's finally, after we've covered all of these different examples, actually create our own example of how we can actually build a relationship with our kids, share it with them, and at the same time, use Microsoft Teams to facilitate that. So as part of this session, I just want to highlight that you have the ability to have a special extended access code. So it's MS Drive thru 2021. So MS Drive thru 2021. And you'll be able to apply this to your Buncee account to be able to receive a special extended access code, especially if you're a new user, so that you have a lot more time to dive in and be able to explore the tool as well. So now that you have this code, let's go ahead and actually log into our Buncee account and create our first ever Buncee if we're new to it. So again, let's remember the code MS Drive thru 2021. So we're going to go ahead, go into our Buncee account. So if you are new to Buncee, I just want to highlight how to actually sign up for your Buncee account. So I'm just going to open up a new window right over here. So on our new window, we're going to head to buncee.com. So that's buncee.com. And once you log into or go to the Buncee website, what you'll see on the top right-hand side of your screen is the sign up button. So after you go to buncee.com, you'll see the sign up button, and you'll go ahead and click on the sign up button. And once you press that, you're going to go ahead and press get started for free on the top. So that's get started for free. It's a red button. And when you click on that, you're going to be able to actually select all of the different ways that you can sign up with your account. So if you are currently using your Microsoft Teams credentials or your Microsoft credentials, all you have to do is continue with Microsoft, and it'll actually allow you to create your account automatically. So I encourage you to just continue with Microsoft, but otherwise you could sign up with your own email, of course. And so once you do this, all you have to do when you log in to be able to apply your code is you're going to log into your dashboard. Once you've signed up for your account, you're going to log into your dashboard, and on the top right hand side of your screen, you're going to see your icon. You're going to click on this icon on the top, and what you'll do is head over to the billing page. So it'll be the first one that's on right over there. You're going to go ahead and click on billing. And then once you're on the billing page, you'll see over here that it'll give you an option to enter the coupon code. So on the bottom of your screen, you're going to click on any of the classroom accounts. So we'll click on Classroom Lite. Once you click on that, you enter the coupon code, and then we type in the code right over here, which is MS Drive thru 2021. So then you'll be able to get that extended access, which gives you another month on Buncee. So just type in this code MS Drive thru 2021, and that's how you'll be able to create your account and get started on that. So now let's say that now that we're ready, we've already created our account and set it up. Let's go ahead and finally start creating our actual Buncee. And so let's go ahead and go to the Buncees tab. Remember, there's 3 different tabs for you to focus in on. And when you go to the Buncees tab, this is where you'll finally be able to create all of those different Buncees that we've shown in today's session. So you'll have an option once you're in the tab to be able to create a new Buncee using the square right over here. Or you could head to the top right where you'll see this red button that says create and press on version 3.0. So these are the 2 versions of Buncee. Of course, we highly recommend the most up-to-date version, which is version 3.0. So you could either press this button, version 3.0 under create, or you press create a new Buncee right over here. So let's go ahead and create a new Buncee and click on this. And so once we do that, it'll finally open up our creation canvas. And so once we open up our creation canvas, what you'll see first of all is our templates library. So as I mentioned in the first half of our session, that you have access to thousands of classroom ready templates, and I can't emphasize that enough. But as you scroll through the templates library, of course you could create from scratch, but as you scroll through, you'll see there's 25 plus different categories for you to pick from. So they are focused on different subject areas and also beyond the classroom ideas. So you'll notice you could do for English, language learning, the library, you'll have math opportunities, or use it for physical education. So you could click on any of these and you'll be able to see just different examples of templates that you could scroll through. So if you click on one, let's say it's this math words unscrambler, you click on it, you'll be able to preview the template and decide if you want to be able to use it in your classroom. Or you can head back and decide if you want to be able to view others. So there's a lot of different templates for you to pick from. And so just scrolling through, you could go to newly added and see what's new. So let's say that you don't really have a preference for picking any of the categories. You could scroll through the newly added section and just view some of the recent templates that have been added. So just note, we actually update the template library every day. So there's always something new for you to be able to find to inspire what you're going to create in your classroom. Other than that, of course, you can also search with a keyword here. So because today we are going to create about me Buncees, let me just type about me. So if you search a keyword, you'll be able to type it in onto that little blue section, and you'll be able to see different templates that you can actually use if you'd like to get started. So there's a lot of things, so you don't have to feel this pressure to be able to just create from scratch. You can always access a template. But for today's session, we're actually going to go ahead and create from scratch. So after we've navigated this templates library, I'm going to X this out or press start from scratch. And we'll finally visit our actual Buncee creation canvas. And so this is the Buncee creation canvas. Before we get started, let me walk you through what you're looking at, so it's very easy for you to understand how to, move forward past this session. So on the top left or on the left-hand side of your screen, what you'll notice is that this is where you'll be able to add pages to your Buncee. So your Buncees don't have to be one page. You can have it as multiple pages. You can add more pages by pressing the plus sign. Now on the left-hand side, you'll also be able to add more items to your Buncee. So this is where you'll be able to add more items in the future, so all of the different media options. And now on the top, you'll also be able to resize your canvas. So right now we have it on the presentation size. So if you click on resize your canvas, this will give you a lot of different options for you to pick and choose what size Buncee you'd like to create. So this is the presentation size that we have, but you could change it to a square, just like we've shown in the other examples. You can make it as a banner. So a lot of our educators actually use it to supplement their Facebook or Twitter profiles. So you could design your own banner on Buncee. You can make it a document, of course. Let's say if you want to create your worksheet, or if you want to create a custom size, you can also customize your Buncee. So a lot of people, for example, like to use Buncee to create their Wakelet cover images. So you can actually change the size of your Buncees right over here. But for the sake of this session, we're actually going to keep it to the Buncee size creation screen. So we're going to X this out. And now, before we get started, I just want to walk you through how to actually create on Buncee. So let's say that, you don't know where to get started and you want to go back to the templates library. You can actually click here to select the template to go back to that templates library. And that will open up all of the different options again so that you don't have to start from scratch. But otherwise, it's very simple, as you could see, to actually get started on Buncee. So there's two other key big buttons for you to pick from. So we're going to go ahead and pick the first one, which is to change a background. So when you go ahead and click on change a background, it'll actually start opening up the big library of Buncee made graphics. And so we clicked right into it, but you'll notice immediately that these are the thousands of different graphics that I had mentioned you have access to right within your Buncee canvas. So you can pick and choose very visual graphics to pick from and share those with your kids. But otherwise, aside from being able to scroll right through, on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see the different categories for you to pick from. So there's the web, you could change colors, or you can upload your own files. So the web, again, if you click here, this is a way for you to actually find those Creative Commons licensed images that source from the internet. And without having to have your students go from tab to search on Google or Bing or whatever search tool they use to find an image, you can actually find these images right within Buncee. So you could search the web right within here. You can also change the colors. So if you'd like to, of course, change the colors, you can do so. You can upload your own images, of course, if you have. But at the same time, if you scroll down, you'll also be able to see all of the different graphics categories that we have available to you as well as your students. So you'll see all of the different categories. We've actually added images to supplement them in case your learners are, unable to fully read yet. So they'll be able to understand the terms. So you can scroll through all of these different categories to pick one that you like. But since we're going to do an About Me Buncee to really build that relationship with our kids, let's go ahead and click on About Me. So now that we've opened the About Me category, again, you'll see so many different graphics that you can pick from. All of them are visually engaging for your students, so it's very eye-captivating immediately for your kids to be able to use. So you'll be able to pick right through. So you see on the top row that we have the 3 truths and a lie, like I mentioned in the earlier example. So you'll be able to scroll right through. You'll see there's a lot of different options to pick from. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, the All About My Country. And so what I'm going to do is once you select your background, you can either choose to apply it to one page, or you can apply it to all of the pages that you have, or you can drag it right in. So you could select it. So you notice that it's selected by this blue rectangle that we have. And once you select it, you can just drag it right in. And it's super easy. So you notice immediately how fast it is to make something very visually engaging and captivating for your kids to be able to create with. And so now that we've added our own background, let's go ahead and finally add our first media options on Buncee. So in order to do so, all we have to do is actually press the plus button that is right in the center of your screen, or we could do on the top right-hand side. So we're going to press the plus button to finally add our media options. So if you are new to Buncee, as we mentioned in the beginning of the first half of our session, there's so many different graphics that you have the ability to pull into your Buncee, and all of this is in one place. It's meant to be very simple for you as an adult, or even for you as a kid, as a maybe, let's say, a kindergartner or a first grader. So going through the different graphics that we have, they are color coded just for ease, but what you'll notice first is that you can actually add text to your Buncee, of course. You could add shapes. You can draw on your Buncee. So if you want to, get a little more artistic, you could totally draw there. Now everything in red represents graphics that are created on Buncee. So you can add 3D images. So a lot of our teachers that are, teaching science in particular, they're using the 3D images to be able to supplement their work. You can access animation, so that's where you saw all those fun different graphics that have been added into the different Buncee creations that we walk through. There's stickers, there's messages, you can also add emojis, which has been in particular very powerful for social and emotional learning. Now in the center, you can also add web images. And so these web images, like I mentioned, and are all Creative Commons licensed, so they are safe for you and your students to use, so no copyright issues to worry about. Similarly, said with the panoramic images. So right in Buncee, you can also add 360-degree images right into your Buncee canvas. Of course, like I mentioned in the presentation, you also have access to YouTube channels. So all of these are safe for your students. They are only sourced from educational channels that include NASA, National Geographic, Capstone, the Met, TED, Khan Academy. All of these, again, are safe for you and your students. You don't have to worry about finding an inappropriate video right in Buncee. Other things that you can do with Buncee is upload your own files. So let's say you want to add images or your own PDFs, you can do so immediately. You could also import your own URL. You could record your own video like I showed in my examples before, and we'll record our own video later today. And you can also take your own photos. So if you want to have your students add a personalized touch, you can totally do so. Other things, of course, is that if you want to later send your Buncee as an assignment to your kids, you can also add a free response question or a multiple choice question. And last but not least, you can add a QR code to your Buncee. So this is great, let's say, especially if you're planning to print your Buncee and you want to be able to re-access the digital form of that Buncee very easily. You can access the QR code and have your students, let's say, scan this QR code to be able to view the entire Buncee on their device. So these are all of the different media options that you can find in Buncee, super simple. But now that we've covered all of the different media, let's go ahead and finally start adding our own graphics. So since this is all about my country, I'm actually also from the Philippines, so I'm from Asia. So let's go ahead. All you have to do is actually type a keyword. And what this keyword will do is search the entire library for graphics related to that search term. So once we type it in, let's press enter. And what you'll notice immediately is that graphics related to that search term immediately show up. So you could scroll through, see different images for it. And at the same time, you can also search the web for it. So you can search the art or you could search the web images, and this will actually pull all of those Creative Commons licensed images like I mentioned. So let's go ahead and select some of these graphics. So we'll go ahead and select an image, again, that's highlighted by the rectangle over here, and you can just drag and drop it right over in. So once you've added your image, you'll notice very simple for you to add. You can move it around. Once you've added it, you can resize it once you have it selected, represented by these red circles. So you can scale it, you can rotate it, of course. So it's very easy for you to be able to manipulate what you've added onto your Buncee screen. And so now that we've added one image, let's quickly add a few other ones just to show you how this works. So we're going to go ahead and press the plus sign again. So now that we've added one, we want to add more. We're going to go ahead on the top right and press the plus sign. And so once we press the plus sign, it'll bring you back to all of the different media options. And now let's search Malaysia. So what you'll notice is that there's actually a lot of different graphics for Malaysia as well. So you'll be able to pick and choose them if you'd like. So let's say we have a blue background. So I'm going to pick something a little more, in contrast. I'm going to pick a yellow version of the country, but you'll see that there's different graphics that you can actually pick from. So once you select these, again, you could see over here, you can actually go back to the web images, but otherwise I've already selected these different images, these 4 images. So I'm going to just drag that right into my screen. And then you'll notice very simple for you to really just, start to manipulate your Buncee. And so now that we've added these into my screen, we can actually relocate them. So I'm just going to quickly move these around to highlight a little bit about our country over here. So it's super simple for you to add, just different visuals into your graphic. So I'm going to move my little country over here and over here. So there we go. So it's very simple, as you can tell, to be able to just add different media, which is why it's it's being used as a tool for kindergartners as well as adults too that are maybe not so tech savvy. But going back, so let's go ahead and add a few more different graphics. So we're going to go ahead and press the plus sign over here. And now that we've added these different visuals, you saw that we were able to add the web images as well as some of the Buncee graphics. Let's go ahead and also record our own video. So let's say that it's all about my country and you want to talk a little bit more about where you're from and say, introduce yourself to your students as you share this activity. So we're going to go ahead and press record video. So let's see if this works because I'm already sharing my screen, but all right, perfect. It's loading up. So what we can do right in Buncee, like I've mentioned before, is actually record your own video right within the tool. So what's great about this is that as you record your own video, you can give that personalized touch to your kids. So I see it's taking a little bit of a delay since I'm already sharing my screen on Microsoft Teams right now during this call. So I'm actually going to not add the record video, but just note that this is where you'll be able to record your own video into your Buncee session. So I'm going to X this out since I'm already sharing my camera, so it's actually not loading. But in any case, so you'll be able to record your own video or take your own photo directly here if you want to add a personalized touch. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and search the other media options. So what you can do is, let's say you want to add text. So you go ahead, you select text, and then it'll open up the text box. And since we're talking a little bit more about our country, we could say, you could double click to type in and it'll allow you to see all of the different edit options for your text. So you could type your text first. So my name is Eda and I am from, let's say, Malaysia, right? So we're going to introduce ourselves to our kids. So you'll see that I already typed my text. If you select your entire text, what you'll be able to do on the bottom is view the text editor. And this is where you'll be able to personalize your text a little bit more. So you can actually add or change rather the font style. So let's say that you want to change the font. You could change the font if you'd like. You could also change the size. So you'll be able to do this all on the bottom. And then you could change the color, of course. So let's say that we want to change it into a red font as well. And then we're going to click right in and just move it around on our screen. So let's say we want to send this to our kids later. So we're going to just move this Buncee text around. So we'll do that. All right, perfect. Now we've added our text into our Buncee. Let's go ahead and do a few other things just so that we have the ability to understand how to do it. So go ahead, we're going to go back to the plus sign right over here, and you'll see a lot of other resources that you could take advantage of. So in Malaysia, similar to the Philippines, there's also a lot of agriculture features to take advantage of. So I'm going to go ahead and search the panoramic images. So let's say that we want to search farms in the world. So what we can do is, let's say, add a farm. We can add this panoramic image. Again, drop it right in, drag and drop, very easy for you to do. So we're going to just add this and move this around, just quickly manipulate it. And then just for the sake of time, I'm just going to add a few other media options, but you can sort of get the gist of how to create a Buncee, and it's very simple to do so. So I'm going to go ahead, press a plus sign. We're going to add a QR code. So the QR code is a really powerful feature, like I mentioned earlier, because this will allow you, especially as you publish your Buncee for offline access, be able to have yourself or your students scan this QR code to access the digital version. So in fact, if you have your phone handy right now, if you want to give this a scan, you'll actually be able to see this Buncee on your mobile device immediately. So anyway, so we're adding a QR code, and then last few things I want to do quickly is, let's say that we want to have our audio recorded. We're going to go ahead and select any of the different media options that we have on our screen. So let's say that we actually want to add audio to this little map of Asia, of Malaysia that we have. So we select the image, and on the bottom, it'll open up the action panel for your image. And this is where you'll be able to add, like, let's say, links or audio. So let's go ahead and press the audio feature. And when you do that, it'll allow you to finally record your own audio. So if you wanted to give that personalized touch that you've seen in the other examples that we've showcased earlier, you'll be able to do that as well. And so there's another delay because we're already sharing our audio on this session, of course, but this is exactly where you'll be able to add your own audio to any of the different media that you're adding onto your Buncee canvas. And so those are some of the other examples. And now lastly, let's go just to show the interactivity, a multiple choice question. So let's say that we're going to plan to share this with our students as an assignment. You can also give them a little bit of a quiz. So we can add the multiple choice question. Let's say, what is not a city in Malaysia? And then you can say, Lumpur, or we can have it as, let's say, Manila. And so what you'll notice here is that you can actually pick which is the right answer by selecting here and press save. And so the right answer to the question, of course, is Manila, so I highlighted that, and you press save, and then you can add it to your Buncee too. So over here, we can just edit it very quickly, just for the sake of time. And then we're gonna just edit that and move it around. So you'll be able to change the font like I mentioned earlier. So let's do that very quickly. I'm gonna change it to this one. And then I'm also gonna change the color just so that you'll be able to view it better. So we're gonna move that over here, and we're gonna have that question shown. So now that we've created our Buncee, I know this is a very simple Buncee, but let's say that now that we've created it, we want to share it with our kids too. So let's go ahead and finally view this Buncee in real time. So now that we've created it, let's go take a look at how this turned out. So on the top right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the preview button. So you're going to go ahead and press the preview button. And then it's going to ask you to add a title to your Buncee. So let's go ahead and title my Buncee About Me. So now that we've added a title to our Buncee, let's take a look at how it all turned out. And so once it loads, what you'll notice is that all of the interactivity is still intact. So again, like I said, if you actually have your cell phone handy, you can actually scan this QR code immediately and you'll be able to view the Buncee on your mobile device. But otherwise, what you'll notice is that during the session, we added these multiple choice questions. So what is not a city in Malaysia? And so if I chose Kuala Lumpur, of course, that's wrong. So it shows you the X mark. Or if you chose Manila, that's right. So you can actually send this to your kids so that they'll be able to do, let's say, a self-paced assessment as well. Other things is that, remember, during the session, we also added our own panoramic image. So you'll be able to create your own panoramic image. And so if you select it, you'll actually be able to see all of the interactivity. You can even pull it to full screen mode. And so your students are able to actually make their entire lesson or activity very interactive, as you can tell. So all of this is linked within the Buncee. And so let's exit that. And then other things, of course, is that if you added the different graphics, you'll be able to see it here. So it's very, very simple, as you can tell, to create your Buncee. And so the more you'd like to do, of course, the more creative you can get. It's up to you if you'd like. And so now that we've created your Buncee, let's go ahead and just learn how to actually share this with your kids within the Buncee platform, as well as in Microsoft Teams. And so now that we've created our Buncee, what we're going to do is go to the share button right on the top right hand of your screen. And so that's represented by this orange button. So when you click on the share button, this will open up all of the different ways that you can actually share your Buncee to your students as well as to your colleagues, of course. And so on the share panel, you'll notice that you can actually change the privacy setting of your Buncee. So over here, you can allow, anyone with the link to be able to view it, or anyone, which means that it's a publicly available Buncee and a Buncee staff picks, or you could choose specific users. So let's say that you actually are using Buncee for creating, let's say, a report card about your kids. You can actually share this Buncee only to specific users like your own student, and no one else can actually view it. And at the same time, you can change the privacy to just viewing it as yourself. So you, as the owner of the Buncee, have the ability to personalize who can actually view what you've created. So you can change the privacy of your Buncee. You can also make it commentable. So this is where you'll be able to leave comments on Buncees. You can also make it copyable. So let's say that you created your Buncee as an activity and you want to be able to share it with your students. They'll be able to actually copy this entire Buncee as a template for themselves and then edit it and share it back to you as well. So this is the settings. So you can also see the code. So you can share your Buncee as a typical URL. So you can open up a Buncee on any device, whether it's a tablet, a cell phone, or of course your desktop device. So you'll be able to view your Buncee. You can embed it. So if you want to embed it, let's say on your SharePoint site, or so you can actually embed your Buncees as well. You could share it with Buncee users. So this is how you would be able to share it with your kids right within the Buncee account. So if you go ahead and press share with your Buncee users, you could share it to your classrooms or with other educators that have a Buncee account. So if you select on from your classes, you could select your classrooms. So let's say we have student here, and you could select the student that you'd like to share this Buncee activity to, and that will show up then into their own Buncee account. So this is how you can share your Buncee activity with your students. Now, lastly, share to boards. So this is where you'll be able to share to a Buncee board. So let's say that you decided to create this as an activity where you want to have all of your students, create their own About Me Buncees. They can actually go ahead and take a code of a board. So I'm going to just open up a board right over here. So you'll notice that every board has a code, so you'll be able to copy that board. And then if you go back to your Buncee, you could paste that code right over here, and then they'll be able to share it to that board. So if you want your students to all be able to create their Buncees, share it to a board that you own so that you can collect them, this is the way that you would be able to do so. Other things is that you can actually share your Buncee as an email to your students or to your teachers. So if you select on email or RSVP, what's great is that if you decide to, let's say, create an About Me Buncee about yourself and share it to your kids as an introduction, you can actually send it as an email to them or to even their parents, and they'll share it into their inbox immediately. And so this is a sample of how that looks if somebody were to receive a Buncee message. So this is my email, let's say. So what you'll notice right over here is that you'll be able to see the Buncee is shared, and it'll come in a little bit of a cute envelope for your kids to be able to open. And then if they click on it, it'll open up the Buncee itself. So that's how that works. And now going back, the other share options that you have is sharing to social as well as download. So let me come back to the social. So the download is where you'll be able to download your Buncee as a PDF or as an image. So you could press download as a PDF here or download the image that we just created. And then of course you could share that out as usual. And then the last one I want to highlight, of course, is the social. So like we mentioned in the beginning of the session, that you can share your Buncees in so many different ways, whether it's to social media, Google Classroom, but in particular with Microsoft Teams. So if you are using Microsoft Teams like I do on a daily basis, what you can actually do is actually share this to either to any of your channels or to your classes directly from Buncee. So if you click on Microsoft Teams icon here, it'll open up the sharing pop-up, so you should be able to see that on my screen. So once this loads, you'll actually be able to pick and choose any of the different channels that you have. Let's say like the different classes that you have in your Microsoft Teams account. And what you'll notice is that I could pick share to a channel. So I'm going to just zoom in over here. So you could share to a channel, or you could create it as an assignment. And so let me go ahead and press share to a channel. So right over here, you'll be able to search for any of your channels that you have in your Microsoft Teams account. So I have an account right over here. So it's called the MS Demo class. So I'm going to click on one of my channels, and then what I'll do is, this is the Buncee that we just created. You can actually attach it immediately. I'm going to say check out, or let's say welcome to our class. Here's a little bit about me. So you can actually add this Buncee as a link, and you could press share, and this will actually post immediately to your Microsoft Teams account. So when you press share, that will go ahead and post to your class so that all of your students can actually see what you've created and also get to sort of engage with it. And so let me go ahead and close this. So this is how you've actually created your Buncees. And now let's go ahead and move into Microsoft Teams now. So now that we've shared this Buncee into Microsoft Teams, I'm just going to pull this URL for a moment, copy it. So when you go to Microsoft Teams, this is what you'll be able to see in your account. So this is my Microsoft Teams class, so the MS Buncee demo class that we just pulled out. And so what you'll see over here is, this is the example Buncee that we just created. So I wrote, welcome to our class. Here's a little bit about me. And so what your students are able to do is click on this and be able to open the Buncee. So it makes it for a very seamless process for your kids, especially when you're planning to share them a lesson or an activity to be able to view in their classroom. So this is how you use the Share to Teams feature. But like I mentioned in the presentation earlier in the first half of our session, there's so many different ways that you can use Buncee with Microsoft Teams. So I want to highlight that before we draw to a close for our Q&A. So what you'll notice right over here is that as we create our Buncees in a conversation, you'll also be able to use Buncee messages. So you could press reply. Let's say you press reply. You can actually pull up the Buncee icon right over here. And when you do that, you'll actually be able to open up a lot of different fun, quirky Buncee messages that you can reply to for your students. So let's give it a second to load right over here. But once this loads, you'll actually be able to see all of the different messages that you can send out to your students. So we actually actively use this to provide positive messages of reinforcement to our kids. So let's say that you can select any of them, and you could select it, and then it'll actually post any of the messages, and you could send it to your kids. So a lot of our classroom educators are actually using the Buncee messages to really provide positive reinforcement to any of the class materials that are being shared in their Microsoft Teams account. So I'm going to just go ahead and respond. So this is just another fun set of ways that you can use Buncee with Microsoft Teams. Now, other features that we've highlighted in our session of how to use Buncee with Microsoft Teams is adding as a tab. And so what we've mentioned before is that you can actually add a Buncee as a tab in Microsoft Teams. So what I'm going to do is press the plus sign in a channel, right? So the key thing about this feature is that it's a powerful way for you to keep things organized for your kids. So if you create a lesson or an announcement that you want to make sure is easily accessible for your students, you can add it as a tab in your Microsoft Teams channel. So if you go ahead and press add a tab, what you can do is you'll be given the option to be able to search all of the different tools that integrate with Microsoft Teams. So one of the powers, again, of Microsoft Teams is that it integrates with so many different tools. And so the first one that you have here is to search for Buncee. So when you add Buncee, this is how you'll be able to add a Buncee as a tab. So once you select Buncee, I'm just going to log into my account right over here. So we're going to sign in with Google, or with Microsoft rather. So we're going to just quickly log in here. And once we log in, you won't have to do this again, but once you log in, you'll be able to actually post your Buncee as a tab. So I pulled the link, I actually copied it earlier. So once we paste the link right over here, you'll see a preview of this activity that we just created. You could post it to the tab, and when you press save, this will actually then show as a tab in your Microsoft Teams channel. So we'll give it a second to load. And so what's great is now this will be a permanent tab on your Microsoft Teams channel. And your students will have this immediately available to them. So like I mentioned before, if you want to actually create a welcome announcement for your class, or you maybe want to highlight a student project, you can actually pin any of these as a resource in your Microsoft Teams channel. And so these are some of the different ways that you can actually integrate Buncee with Microsoft Teams into your classroom instruction. And so I want to highlight some of the last key features that you can do with Buncee with Microsoft Teams. So I'm just going to go back to our Buncee account right over here. But like I mentioned before, the reason why we integrate with Microsoft Teams is to not just make learning fun and productive for your kids, but make it very seamless for you to be able to communicate easily with your kids. So as you create your lessons or your projects on Buncee, we want to make it easy for you to be able to keep connected with your students. So if you go back to your Buncee dashboard, right, what I mentioned earlier is that you can actually select the Microsoft Teams icon on the top of your dashboard. When you select that, that will allow you to actually set up a Teams call right within your Buncee account. So now that we've done that, what you can do is select the Generate tab, and you press the Create a Meeting link. When you press Create a Meeting link, you can actually set up your appointment, let's say class. So you're going to set up your class call. You could pick the date, the time of your session. So nobody really goes on a call at 11 p.m. So let's say that you decide to change the date. You could pick your classes on Tuesday, and then your class starts at, let's say, 10 a.m. You'll be able to change the time of your class. And so we're going to go ahead and pick the time. And so let's say that you set the time, you could press create. And once you do that, what's awesome is that you can actually create this meeting. Like I mentioned, you'll have the ability to copy the link for it and paste it into your students' accounts, or send it to them that way as a URL. Or like I mentioned before, you can actually share this meeting link with your students immediately right within your Buncee account. So if you go to the Share with Students tab, if you have your students that are set up on your Buncee account, you can actually go to the Share with Students tab, select the class that they're from, and then you will select the student that you'd like to share it with, and you press share, and then that will be shown into their Buncee account as well. So they'll be able to find that right over here when they go into their own respective account. You can also share by email. So if you'd like to share it as an email to anybody, whether it's your students or to a colleague, you can actually share your Microsoft Teams meeting as an email right from Buncee as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually use Buncee with Microsoft Teams to make the learning experience a lot more seamless for your kids, as well as to make it easy for you to be able to engage with them too. So there was a lot of things that we covered in this 2-hour session. So I know in case there's any questions, especially post-session, I just want to highlight again that on the bottom right-hand side of your Buncee dashboard, this is where you'll be able to actually access all of the information that we covered in this session for help resources. So if you click on this little B icon, it will open up all of the different help articles that you can navigate through. You'll be able to launch step-by-step tutorials. So you'll be able to see how to create a Buncee. So especially if you need some guidance on that, or how to create a Buncee board or set up your students and your class accounts, you could all access this tutorial here. And then in the future, if you're interested in other live training events like a Buncee 101 session, you can also access all of this information here. In particular, I want to highlight the integrations and app smashes. So if you are looking for more support on how to integrate Buncee with Microsoft Teams, if you click on the integrations and app smashes, you'll also be able to see all of the different ways that you can use Buncee with Microsoft Teams right over here as well. So all of the help resources are there for you, and they're immediately in one place. So with that being said, Thank you so much for tuning into this session to learn a little bit more about Buncee as well as Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and double check if there's any questions. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. My contact is edac@buncee.com. And I really appreciate all of you for tuning in for this session. And so thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out or use that help resource article on the bottom. So thank you and have a great rest of the day.